with Ayers and Associates. I thought we'd let them go first, and then questions from any of our council people. That fits everybody's bill. That's what we're going to do. And so, Jan and Greg, you're on.
Well, thank you very much. First of all, on behalf of Ayers Associates, I'd like to thank you for this opportunity to come before you today and talk about our engineering services and what we can do for the city of Hudson. Ayers Associates in 2009 actually celebrated our 50th anniversary as an engineering company, and as we get into this decade, we're looking for another decade to get to our second half of our first century. You know, we've been around a long time, a Wisconsin firm, and we have about 300 employees. And really what that provides the city is stability and a wide range of service that we have. One of the things that really has proven out is we do a long-term work for a lot of communities. Greg's going to talk about that in a little bit. But the reason that we've been able to do long-term work for a lot of communities is our project manager focused company. We're not a principal focused company. I'm part of our executive management team. I'm here today to represent the company, but Greg's the person that you're going to be working with. And it's the ability that we give him to have autonomy and give you what you need and give our clients what they need that's really a difference maker for Ayers Associates when you're talking about a community like the city of Hudson. Greg's been here since 1993 at Ayers Associates. I joined the firm in 1990, so we've been around Ayers Associates for quite some time. We're familiar with how it works. We're an employee-owned company. We all understand what it takes to be in business. We understand what it takes to be in business in times like we're living in right now. I'm going to turn it over to Greg now and let him talk about more of the technical side on the engineering side. So here you go, Greg.
I'd also like to thank you for the opportunity to interview. As Jan had mentioned, I've been with Ayers since 1993, and I live in St. Croix County. I live in the Baldwin area, so I do get over to Hudson quite a bit, and when this opportunity arose, I thought this was an excellent opportunity. My family and I come here every once in a while to shop and go to movies, so it's a great city. As Jan had mentioned, Ayers is a project manager-oriented structure with how we work with clients. Rather than an older traditional top-down flow chart from the president down to the lower levels, I show this in our handouts here, an organizational chart. And what we do is we put the client in the middle and appoint a project manager as that point person. That's the person, as Jan was explaining, I would be at meetings, basically the needs, the representation you need for projects or what services are needed of the city. And then now in the outer circle, what I'd put together here, mainly the municipal-based strengths that we have in our company, landscape architecture, water systems, wastewater, sanitary sewer. We pull that in as a project team on an as-needed basis. We feel that this circular chart, this team approach, pulls all those resources to your disposal, and we feel there's more value-added input rather than running in a linear fashion. It's more like the people at the table providing the input on the discussion, and there's lots of input that I can get working with these people when they have direct input on that project. But there again, I would be the person, though, that would kind of condense that information and summarize things. As we move over to this slide, or this board here, and I do have a handout on this, this outlines some of the more traditional municipal services that a community like Hudson may need. Kind of starting from the top down, planning, and then maybe down to finer, refined discussion items. I would imagine, with community planning, reviewing a plan, making sure that's up to date. We look at transportation, infrastructure, parks, industrial, commercial business, planning routes, and things like that with your plan, along with the infrastructure throughout the city, water, sanitary, stormwater systems, because that is part of planning, making sure that backbone is there to facilitate that growth. Along with the entity of the infrastructure discussion, we can obviously provide modeling, mapping, that can be used to most effectively design those infrastructure improvements based on your projected growth. So we don't have to play catch up, too late in the game. Try to implement that at the most effective time. Kind of following some of the next step down from planning would be design standards, maybe updating ordinances that go with those design standards. When I work with communities, I strive to try to help them with standards because I think it develops consistency, whether it's a street design standard or site designs where you want to be consistent. I think it's very important to treat your developers or your other people the same. Shouldn't be disparity there. There should be a clear set design that everybody should have to work with. That could be stormwater. Oftentimes, the DNR does not have requirements to detain more than a 2-year event, but in an urban area, we need to help with 100-year events because of the urban flooding issues. All those details can be spelled out in here, and then their engineers have a basis to know what design entities they need to deal with. Public improvement plan, we often work with communities to look at forecasting public improvements 5 to 7 years out. This may come out of planning. Obviously, it comes out of finances, too. What can they afford? Maybe they have to skip a project every other year. But we also try to provide the most effective implementation of those plans. Try to place a priority. Is there a street in worse condition or a water main route that's been breaking and needs to be repaired? Municipal street and utility design, which is the core of what a lot of municipal engineers do. That's the bread and butter, so to speak. We have extensive experience in working with that. I think there's so many more challenges in doing an existing streets reconstruction versus a new development on an undeveloped area because of all the existing features. You've got public there. You've got lots of things you got to bring into play. One thing we found in the last 3 years with sort of the economic changes when we work with communities is we're seeing an emphasis on, with these designs, maintenance costs. They should be looked at. Aside from construction costs, we somewhat get focused only on that. What's it going to cost? But we'd like to show what will it cost, because year to year to maintain, because that will be ongoing forever. An example I'd like to point out would be street reconstruction on a secondary street, say a residential street. Years ago, by default, we often widened the street. It'd travel better, more parking. We're giving that a new look now because of both a potential cost savings of construction. Does it really need to be widened? If it's 36-foot, traffic volumes aren't increasing, maybe it's a no net change rather than increasing it 6-8 feet. You have less pavement, maybe less curb and gutter costs. But then the added ongoing maintenance costs would be when you're sealing and crack filling the pavement, that goes down. Your stormwater quantity goes down, your snow plowing. It's just those things that we're seeing a little bit more input that we can bring to communities. As we go on down, environmental permitting, those are often required with a utility improvement project. We have in-house people in our environmental group that help us with either wetland delineations, environmental assessments if you were to run into contaminated sites. We have a lot of those resources in-house. Even working with the city maintenance projects, we often work with communities on either helping them with their mapping, like for hydrant flushing routines. We can use their mapping, help them with plans. That's kind of like on an hourly basis, just whatever that would take to help them with their local maintenance projects where they don't need design per se. I'd like to jump ahead over to this board, and I'm just trying to give you an understanding of how we work with a community. I think that's what you're trying to get a feel for. How would it be if you were to work with theirs? I wanted to summarize a little bit of discussion about a project approach. The first thing any engineer has to do, whether it's a simple or complex project, is get your clear understanding of your goal for a project. Say it's a street reconstruction. In my mind, I've done 35 or 40 of them over the years, and I need to clear my thoughts but focus on what you want out of that project. I could say you should do it this way, but there may be input that's very important to the city as to what goes into that. On top of that, I'd like to use an example of a simple project and a complex project. Let's say this one is both of these projects have 6 core progressions you would go through. Let's say as an example of a simple project, a water main extension in the outer edges of town through an undeveloped area. Very few affected landowners, not a lot of previous planning. Maybe that planning was done over here with our water system planning. So the ultimate concept project is in our minds, not a lot of rethinking needed to be done. We would project our costs, our people hours, our resources we need to do that based on what we know and in a proposal with those dollars. We don't really look at the cost of the project, but we could outline that scope so we know this is our understanding, here's what we feel is our staff time to complete that project, and then that's our responsibility to achieve that. A complex project, let's say, a major, I'm following the line, it's visual, sorry. A major reconstruction of your downtown, let's say. It's not as straightforward, thus the visual aid there. That's going to take a little more upfront planning, a little more figuring out, maybe some concepts. We know we want to do it, but it's not as easily identified. What I've often done with communities is go to a concept approval scope of service. Let's get this far and figure out, is this what we want to do, or do we need to change that before we go any further? We lay that groundwork here to develop efficiencies in final design. But we can make that go or no-go decision here based on the legwork we did up front. Now, let's say these projects both cost the same amount. You can see the difference, though, in input that we needed of associated costs of ours to provide that service for the 2 different projects. I guess speaking, following up on what Jan was saying, we've built our reputation with long-term relationships with communities. That was really the backbone of what built our municipal engineering group. We've learned a lot of lessons. There's information I learned from talking with your public works directors that's very valuable. Those lessons learned that are proven, and that's what we try to stick with is proven technologies, things that we feel are reliable, predictable, but yet still looking forward and obviously having to comply with the new regulations, environmental regulations. That does push the science a little bit. We try to do this without sacrificing the quality of the work or the needs of the client. In our handout, there is also a kind of a blow-up of Western Wisconsin there, which shows communities we've worked with and still do work with, both on either an appointed basis or just on a part-time basis. As Jan had mentioned, I work in a River Falls office about 1 day a week. I go to our Eau Claire office and sometimes River Falls, and so I work with Hammond, Baldwin, Roberts, assisting them with their engineering needs. So, Jan has a couple follow-up comments here.
Yeah, just a couple things. Obviously what you're here to do tonight is try to figure out who you want to work with for the next year or beyond that. And if you look in your handout on the left-hand side, there was one sheet on their left-hand side in addition to our services brochure, and it asks the question, why Ayers Associates? Well, we have the ability to meet all your needs. We've got a 300-person firm that has many specialties that we can bring to bear. What I would say the normal day-to-day things, Greg can handle all those for you. For the most part, you're not going to need a 300-person firm, but there are going to be things that come up that we can provide that, and Greg knows right where to get those answers. Sometimes he can handle it with a phone call to get you what you need. We don't even need to bring somebody to the project or to your office. He has that connection to do that. We've got the office in River Falls that he works out of. He can be here. He lives not too far away from here. He's within minutes of your needs. We're a Wisconsin firm. We've got a long service to nearby communities, as he just pointed out. His familiarity with your community is going to be beneficial. He's not going to have the same familiarity that you do, but he's familiar enough with it to understand what you want to bring to the table and apply the engineering science that's needed to serve what you want to get out of your projects, to serve your community and your citizens. And we're a Wisconsin-based firm, have been for over half a century now. We are with you on that and continue to be. As our new governor wants to say we're open for business, I'd like to see that business stay in Wisconsin, frankly. And we bring an independent and fresh look to the community. Sometimes that's helpful. Not always, but sometimes it is helpful to get a fresh look, a fresh perspective into what's going on, and we offer that. That's one thing that we can bring to the table. So with that, I'd like to open it up for your questions and see if we can address those.
I have a couple, if you don't mind if I go first. In your company, is there any change in ownership imminent that you're aware of?
Well, we don't have anything imminent. We're an employee-owned company. We have 68 major shareholders in the firm, but we're all part of an ESOP.
Okay.
We've been in business for 50 years. We set up our ESOP back in the 1980s, and that's been a way that we've been able to transition our ownership for perpetuity as we move forward.
All right. Percentage of city work or municipal work versus private? Roughly. I mean, I don't have to have the exact percentage.
Yeah, the vast majority of the work we do as a company, about 75% of the work we do as a company is public work, either working for the state, working for a city, working for a county, working for a municipality. A small portion of our work is commercial work. We do commercial work, but it's a small percentage of what we do.
Okay, I have one last question, and then I'll let, your rates to your private developers within the city, are they the same rates that you would charge the city? In other words, we have a private development and you're gonna take a check for us and make sure they're doing it right. Are you gonna charge them the same as what you're gonna charge us? Or do you charge them at a higher rate?
I'll let Greg answer that question, but I want to clarify it a little bit. Well, in a situation where we're working for you, we wouldn't be working for that developer typically. That would typically be a conflict of interest.
How would you bill them? Okay,
Oh,
you're working for us, but are you gonna charge them a higher rate than you do the city?
Yeah, our billing rates, I think in the proposal I had an example there. That is across the board with any project we work on, yeah. And I believe that really translates. I mean, Jan could probably speak more on behalf of that because of our DOT work we do. Our books have to represent that
Thank you.
Uniform rate. Yeah.
Okay. Scott?
Can we stay on that subject for just a second? Because in your proposal, you have a compensation range for each position. And the range for the manager, I assume would be you, Greg, goes from $126 an hour to $170 an hour. Can you tell us what you would be charging us for compensation on an hourly basis?
Yep, and that range is based on the people in those positions have different years of experience, and that's probably where you're seeing that range. That's what would dictate that. My rate is actually at the lower end. I'm more in that 125 range. I'm newer to the management, project management.
Rounding off, your lowest rate's 126, so we would say we're going to get billed $126 an hour. Is that correct?
I'd have to verify that dollar exactly. I'd hate to be wrong.
Let me just clarify that. The range that we put in there is based on the range of people that we have in those classifications. You know, if you look at what we've got here, Greg's rate would be at that lower end. We have other people that would charge out at different rates. And when we talk about putting together a cost for a particular project or a service, the people that we would need to do that service would develop our overall scope of work and our overall cost that we would share with you up front. But yes, you're right. The rate that Greg would have, I couldn't tell you that. I don't have that memorized in my head, but it would be in that range for his services, yeah.
I am in the lower range of the manager's classification because of experience. Some of these people have 18, 20, 24 years. And that shows that difference in that classification. What you would see is with my hours is, I don't know that exact dollar number. I didn't know that, but it would be, throughout the year, you would see that same dollar per hour charge if it's my time. If it was, say, a staff level engineer, he has a different dollar per hour charge rate, you know, and, you know, with his time, you know, it's gonna be lower, but we don't alter that. Maybe at year end, there may be a change. There hasn't been a lot of changes for the last couple of years, though, you know, just because of the economy, those rates.
If I may stay on that subject for just a little bit more, you also get compensated for reimbursements. And you have a reimbursable expense schedule in your presentation. And mileage is not on that. But yet, immediately following that, in your sample billings, you show a charge, in this case, for this particular sample, was over $60 for mileage. So my question is, are you going to be charging us mileage to come to our meetings?
No, I don't. When I go to communities, if I'm there to, you know, sort of be there on a representative level, I typically don't, mainly because that's why we emphasize the proximity here. Let's say there's a project that we've scoped, and I need to come to a handful of meetings. Let's say there's 5 public meetings. That may be factored into a resource or cost and computed, but that if it goes beyond that number of trips, then I can't bill more than those numbers of trips. That's oftentimes is done, but that would be based on the River Falls distance, not Eau Claire.
And will you be charging us for the time you spend at our meetings? Are those billable hours?
The meeting times, for our scope of services, like I was talking about on that previous project or board, if I am scoping a level of service I need to compute with my time, other engineers' time, I probably factor in some meeting times, but that's going to be hours factored into project development. You know, if those projects run longer than I estimate, or the time runs longer than I estimate, I need a couple extra meetings. I mean, oftentimes that's on my dime, you know.
I'm sorry, but I'm unclear on this answer. When you come to attend our Hudson City Council meetings or Public Works Committee meetings, will we be billed for the time that you spend in those meetings?
I guess I was thinking if it was like a project-driven meeting, like where I was presenting something or we were
Well,
if
I may add, your proposal is very project-oriented.
Yeah.
And we're looking at a consulting engineering profile here. So you would be at city council meetings very, very often.
I think I see now more the context of what you're talking about. If I was here to review, let's say, a private development on behalf of the city, oftentimes the other communities I work with, that time gets billed to the development review. But if I'm here, not a lot on the agenda, but I'm here, oftentimes I don't bill for those meetings. If there's no project-related cost or project-related content, you know, that I'm representing, but I may want to be here in case something comes up, a discussion item comes up. Oftentimes that happens, you know, in a meeting that I've
Well, in reality, what we provided to you isn't a contractual agreement necessarily of where we're going with this. You know, we'd be willing to sit down and talk with you and say, okay, what is it, the service that you're really asking us to provide? We've provided you with a list of what we can do and how we can do it. We haven't said it's going to be so many dollars per year or so many dollars per meeting or any of those things. I think we really need to sit down and figure out what is it that you want us to provide in terms of service so that we can provide you with that cost to go along with that, and whether it's on an ongoing basis or whether it's a project-related basis or whatever that case may be.
Okay.
A question. On-site observation and inspections are very important to me in the city. We've had some issues in the past. Please define and elaborate the experience and the credentials of your observation team.
Well, I think that's a good point. When I started in '93, the first thing I spent was about 5 years in the field, you know, administering our construction projects and, you know, verifying the integrity of the construction and pressure testing water mains, pressure testing sewers, making sure compaction results, specifications we laid out in the plans have to translate into what was put in the ground. And I spent maybe more time than most people in the field. And I mean, I'm glad that you value that, because oftentimes that isn't valued, and problems arise in the construction 2 years down the road, something settles out. I mean, those are things we've learned over the years, what you need to look at. What are the key, especially the key items of when things are being built? Where do you need to compact? Right around the manholes, because they always settle right there. You know, that's the key area. But we have, all of our staff engineers have had extensive years of experience. There's people not listed on here as a resource, though, that we have as specific field people.
U.S. Brian Chapman and Lisa Frelling is your construction.
Yep.
That's who we want to know about.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, yeah, Brian Chapman would be a field representative. There's another person, Doug Peterson. He was the guy I was really thinking of. That those are our two primary full-time construction people for our observation.
And Brian's got, correct me if I'm wrong, you can probably see it in your packets. I was thinking in the neighborhood of 20 years of experience.
Yeah. I believe it's that, yeah.
One more. Can you tell me a little bit what you guys know about the city of Hudson's engineering needs, and then what you think the two most challenging issues will be for the municipal engineering perspective in the next 5 to 7 years?
Well, I know, talking with the DNR, I know that a stormwater utility is shortcoming here soon. That's probably going to be faced for Hudson. We've had experience doing that with the four-year campuses. We've helped implement those permits following the DNR's requirements. That'll be a big new entity for the city. The growth, I think there's been a lot of planning done, obviously, here in the community. If I were to be appointed to this position, I would want to research all the planning that's been done, inventory all the data you have, look at the mappings, the utility mappings, the plannings that's already been done, and absorb that information. You know what I mean? That's obviously inherent in it. It has to be done to whoever comes in.
I think one of the other challenges that we're all facing, and probably a more immediate one than the engineering ones, is the fact that everybody's having to do more with less. Mm-hmm. And that's going to be the real challenge. We're challenged with that every day in our engineering business. How can we still do all the things that we need to do and provide the services we need to provide? Well, by the way, we don't have the money we used to have to try to do that. So we have to find new ways of accomplishing the same goals with less money.
Yeah, we're seeing, studies, things like that, they're not they aren't as popular right now. Let's evaluate something, let's study something, We see a lot more going back on what available data do we have, what data is out there the county may have, how can we maybe do a desktop study as effectively as possible. We really see an emphasis on that. So really, yeah, it's pooling those resources that the city has and data that the city has and the county has, and using that inventory for the most effective use of the city.
Any other questions?
Kind of piggybacking on what Randy said, and by the way, Scott, every question you had was on my list, so thanks for asking.
Sorry.
No, that's okay, because I got a couple more. Piggybacking about both what you guys have asked. If you were to be chosen during your transition time as your training, essentially, quote unquote, from learning what we have in the process and what we want down the pipe, will we be charged for that time, or is that something that for your transitional training period?
Well, I think one of the things that that you've experienced here today is the research that we've done to date. No, you're not going to get billed for any of that. And the reality is there is going to be some time when you get a fresh look at what you're doing that's not going to be productive time. And there's going to be a limit to what we can do without charging the city, because we're like any other, we're in businesses like everybody else.
No,
and the reality.
You're misunderstanding what I'm asking, I guess. Obviously, things you charge for things. I'm saying that there's,
We want it free, is what.
No, no, it's not coming out how I want it to
I
be
think
said.
I think I know what you mean, is it's gonna be, you know, absorbing, you know, researching this information. I mean, I can honestly, you know, having access to the plan, your utility records, whether these things are modeled in computer models, I mean, I can assimilate that information fairly quickly.
Right.
There's a lot of things that we do, like say I'm working with a continued client. I think I can spend 4 hours on my own dime trying to put a grant in for them, because I know I got enough information to get it done. Those are things that we often do. There's not a real set hard and fast rule on that necessarily, but we do try to provide that input when I know I can do these things effectively. Honestly, if I was gonna charge 2 hours, it would seem almost like, you know, 2 hours and you did that. If I can assimilate that into some marketing time, that represents better, not me. But like Jan was saying, there is a limit on that. Like if I had to go translate some information or a database, a GIS information system, I mean, that might take some chugging through, you know, that. There's a point where the hours, we would have to charge some time to convert that, or whatever we would have to do. I mean, that's not it.
Can I?
Well, are you gonna, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna kind of springboard on that. One of the things that we're seeing the difference here is that they're a project-based organization, which means that everything is looked at as a project. So showing up to a meeting is, I have 3 projects I'm representing. I'm going to obviously cost justify each project separately. And if we have a GIS conversion, it's something we've asked them to do, and we will say, we need you to do this, and here's a project, and here's a cost.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's a little different way of thinking about it than having somebody just sitting here during a meeting.
But with that mindset, my follow-up to Scott, because I don't know, maybe I'm the one who was confused by the answer that you gave Scott earlier, but so does that mean for meeting charges for meeting and stuff that we're uncertain what our monthly charge could be each month? Because depending on what projects are brought to the table, we could be charged more or less. You don't have a
Well,
fixed
it
charge per
depends,
meeting?
it depends on how you want to set it up. You know, if you want to set it up so that you say, okay, we want you here at every meeting, and this is what we're willing to put in, you know, from a monthly basis or whatever it is, and then that's the way that the contract to be written. If you're saying, we only want you on on-call, and see, and this, Greg didn't spend a lot of time evaluating this or expounding on this. We have some communities that only want us to do certain things for them, where they say, okay, we can handle everything day to day, but we want you to handle this. We want this project you guys to handle, because we can't handle that internally. Then we have other ones that say, we want you to handle everything. So what we're trying to talk about here is, we don't know exactly which one of those or what variation of that you want. And when we know that, then we can answer that question. We're not trying to be vague, but we don't know exactly what you want. So we're trying to understand exactly what you want us to do, and then we can tell you what that cost would be.
I think Lee's had a very perceptive answer to that, and when you said that was probably the best way I could explain that. You know, often I work with the township of Star Prairie. I work with Pierce County reviewing private development reviews that aren't within the in any municipality borders. Let's say in Star Prairie, we're reviewing, there's issues with the extraterritorial zoning with New Richmond. So I might go to a meeting, there might be 3 things on that agenda, and I try to appropriately split my time on the territorial zoning discussions we've had with that agreement. There might be a private development review, maybe there's an hour on that and something else. But yeah, we kind of actually had a very perceptive understanding what I think I was trying to do.
We have 5 minutes, I don't want to cut anybody off, but if we want to stay on our schedule. Questions?
Yeah, I'd like to know, Greg, what's the most complex project you've worked on, and what made it complex?
The most complex project I've worked on, we have offices in River, or in yes, of course, in Colorado. I was thinking Colorado Springs and those areas. I worked on a project about 10 years ago with Colorado Springs Utilities, and it was fronted by our Fort Collins office. And it was a reservoir about 14,000 feet above tree line,
for a water supply reservoir for this Colorado Springs Utilities. And I was able to design the whole thing. It was a retrofit of a drop structure, 100 feet on a rock dam with a steel-faced membrane, because there's no dirt up there. But the communication that project developer or project manager in Fort Collins gave me, I did the designs never being there. And I thought that was, it challenged both of us, because we had to, it's like working and you can't see, you know, you had to communicate very, very well. And that started out rough, admittedly. Another project manager came on board at the Fort Collins end, and he could communicate. He was a great communicator, and it was a very complex project, but once we got going, there wasn't one change order, and the client was very happy in the end. It had a rough start, but that second project manager was reappointed, was a great communicator, and I got all the answers I needed. I got a clear understanding of what they wanted, because I never met the client either. I was the brains behind it, and he was taking it back, so that was probably it.
I do have one other question. You just mentioned change orders. What is your process for, you've got a project, you've got an estimate, you've got a set of plans. What's your threshold for change orders?
Construction related change orders?
Yeah, so you can, road construction or whatever.
Yeah. We really, the goal is to, unless the project changes, once the project goes out for bid, so let's assume that nothing changes. And, I mean, our goal is to have detailed enough specifications, a unit price breakdown for payment that we can adapt to, 402 versus 400. You know, okay, we can go with that if that actually gets built. The goal is really to have documents that are detailed enough that we don't have to incur them. So we truly work very hard, and the thought process going in before the product goes out, that it's bulletproof enough. Is this going to be
Are you talking about the design or
the reason I bring it up is we've had a situation where, you know, dates have continued to slide. You know, how do you get that under control when you realize that, oh, you know, we've got a subcontractor who's not delivering, how are you going to communicate that back to us?
And what we do in our contracts, we put substantial completion dates with a $300, $400, $500 a day liquidated damages on that. You know, with the, we follow AIA and EJCDC contracts for our construction documents. We feel that they're the industry standard on that, and you do have to allow for rain delays. You know, I think that's in the contract, but we track all that. 3 days rain, we'll give you 3 days. But if they're 10 days late, that's not justification. You know,
so you've got a penalty for being late, and you know.
We always do that. If you don't, everybody's good intent might sound good when you're signing papers, but if you don't have some teeth in it, it's most likely to be pushed.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Yeah,
we appreciate your coming in. And we've got a minute to go for our next one.
So you guys are planning to work all night tonight, make a decision?
Hopefully.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Yep, thanks, Jan. Okay.
Did you order the beer?
I thought you did.
I knew somebody was supposed to.
Yeah. Yeah, who's going out with the pizza?
Did you get my email?
We did talk to him.
That's why I
And
asked
he's
that
a
question.
new guy, and he said sometimes water is going down in there and
Because
freezing.
apparently it can be determined.
Oh, no, it was.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thanks.
You.
People are putting coins
Did you
in
have a rating system going on?
when they shouldn't be, and they're tearing the masking tape off, and it's like. it's
Oh,
just
on those-
weld- just weld.
I didn't know any other way to ask that question.
Yep, you did.
Knowing that the previous owner was looking to retire, I felt it was a great opportunity for me to look at purchasing that business, so I was in the community with officials and people that I've worked with in the past. So approximately 4 years ago, Scott Ward and I, who some of you may know Scott from his previous work at the city as well, Scott Ward and I became the owners of Stevens Engineers. Stevens has worked with the St. Croix Business Park on all of their planning and design engineering for almost 20 years. I've also worked with the engineering services for the city as well as Scott. So we feel we have a very clear understanding of the policies, procedures, and personnel of the city. We, as the owner of the company and being right in Hudson, we will give you the personal attention that you need. As I said, I will be your proposed city engineer. I have the experience. I worked with the city for over 8 years, as well as served directly as your city engineer for 4 of those years. At that time, I was responsible for oversight of all the design, the construction, and presentation of all those projects. I have strong communication skills and will be a strong advocate for you. Communication skills, I'll listen to what you want and what you need, as well as be able to communicate to you, the public, the staff, in a manner that gives you the facts and is understandable. I also am invested in this community. Obviously, our work is here and I live here. So I know what's going on as far as my kids go to Willow, so I know the parking problems and the issues around there. As I drive to CCH to visit my great aunt, drive up Wisconsin Street, I see the people walking in the lanes and the drainage problems that are there. So I'm not here on business time. I see these things as I'm driving around. I know what's going on and will be able to apply that to this position. I also have served in leadership roles in Hudson. I've served on the chamber board as well as the St. Croix Valley YMCA board. So I am invested in this community. This is not just another job for me, you know, another client for me. This is my community, and I know that all the interviewees today are great engineers. We all, you know, will provide the same services, are similar in cost, but again, this is where I want to be, and this is my community. Approaches to services. The Stevens team, in our office, we have engineers, registered land surveyor, construction surveyors, a planner, grant writer, and let's see, who did I forget? Our construction inspectors, surveyors, planners, grant writers, and engineers. So we can provide, we are focused on the municipal aspect of the community. We have partnered with WSB and Associates for the specialty services. Partnering is the way to go these days. It is the most cost-effective way of providing the full range of services. We have partnered with WSB many times in the past. I know all of their employees, all their specialties, so we act as one team. We know exactly what's going on. Actually, at WSB is my sister-in-law, Brandy, is an associate there, Brandy Copenhagen. And she was supposed to be here at the interview today. We are looking for her to be here, but she is in Washington, D.C., lobbying for some funding for the 169 corridor. So I just want to show you, though, that they are a true partner in this. Cost-effective and easily accessible. As I said, we are right here, and I live here. Morning, noon, night, middle of the night, we can stop by, we can come look at stuff. Obviously, as I said, I see stuff as I go by. We also, with our office nearby, we've had city staff that has stopped by, picked up plans, dropped off something to us, so very easily accessible for everyone. We also have flexibility. We can deliver the large or small projects. We're currently finishing up projects for Edina, Burnsville, Brooklyn Park, which are large. I've also worked as a city engineer for City of Cottage Grove during their boom period when they went from about 20,000 to 30,000. So I've seen that growth, as well as our small projects. We work for quite a few communities in western Wisconsin, townships and villages doing their street reconstructs and small projects. We're being in the area, we're willing to act as an extension of your staff, whether it's doing a quick drafting or running and taking a survey shot somewhere, we're right there to be able to have that flexibility. Also flexibility, from the flexibility standpoint, we will bring options to you as well as for projects as well as budgets. Obviously, being a business owner, I know how budgets go, I know how businesses run, and I'll be very cognizant of making sure that we are on task and on budget. The transition process. We realize that you have obviously a very long-standing relationship with your current engineering firm. However, a lot of that current institutional knowledge is with people who are no longer there. As I said, I worked for the city for over 8 years, as well as being the direct city engineer during that time. So I do have that past knowledge, as well as Stevens, as a firm, has worked for the St. Croix Business Park. So we really know how to pull all those pieces together. This is not a new relationship. We can really jump right in and take charge of the projects. What I'm going to bring to you is an experienced team, the personal knowledge, and the passion to be here. Again, this is where I want to be. You need to trust that I will pull together all of the existing information. It's kind of interesting, some of the projects that are going on now were being talked about when I was city engineer as well. At that time, a development came in along the Carmichael corridor, so we were looking at planning and looking at how that would fit together. And now there's surveyors out in the northeast corner, so I know that those issues are still out there. We also I was directly involved in a feasibility study to look at the stormwater utility fee. And that feasibility study was never released because it wasn't the right time. But now with the MS4 requirements coming up, I have that past knowledge that I can bring forth. All of this information that we'll gather, whether it be from the existing firm, from our past history, from the city, we will get up to speed at no cost to the city and take responsibility of those projects. So with that, actually, I would like to go into question and answers, and then if I could have a minute at the very end to wrap up, I would appreciate that.
Anyone, questions for Angela?
I do.
Go ahead, go
Why
ahead.
don't you go ahead?
On the same thing, your on-site observation and inspections, okay? They're very important to the city. We've had problems in the past, and I'm looking for guarantees that we're gonna have those on-site inspectors there on projects through the end, through completion. And can you please define and elaborate on the experience and the credentials of your observation team?
Our inspection, construction observation inspection is in-house within Stevens, so it's at our office, it's local. All of our inspectors are WSDOT certified in bituminous, concrete, aggregate sampling, so they have all of the certifications that are required. A lot of our inspectors work, we do WSDOT projects on a regular basis. We did a $3 million project this past summer, Trunk Highway 65 from Roberts to River Falls. And so that project was on a very tight time frame and tight budget because of Farm Technology Days. Sheila Harsdorf made sure that we were going to have that completed, and we did. I mean, even though it was a very rainy spring, we actually came in 2 weeks before the deadline. So we have Wendy Maves or Paul Conlon of the DOT can attest to our inspection services that we perform for them, as well as for the municipalities in our area. We are on site doing the inspections as they've requested.
It's kind of on the same lines of that, Angela. A contractor that, let's say, starts a project with the city, he subs out the contract to a landscaping restoration firm, less than desirable end results for the city. How would you correct the situation?
First of all, in the the project kickoff, the pre-construction meeting, we would get all of those subs up front. I mean, we need to know who's going to be out there. We've dealt with many of them, so we do know their tendencies, whether it's to exceed budget or whether it's to skimp on the black dirt or whatever. So I think we have the local knowledge of all of the contractors in the area. The prime contractor is under contract. I mean, they are responsible for the project to be to the spec, and liquidated damages, whatever it may be, it needs to be enforced. It's not just in there
So
for
you
the heck
do
of it.
enforce with liquidated damages?
Yep.
On every project? Or
Yes.
warranted, I
I
should
mean,
say. Mhm.
if you don't set the precedence, you're not going to get the response.
Thank you. Okay. Anyone else? Question?
Uh,
Mr. O'Malley?
Yeah, Angela, you're going to be our city client contact person at $115 an hour
Yes.
for your paperwork. Will you extend, you'll be attending council meetings at no charge, is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Would you extend that to committee meetings such as Public Works and Parks?
Yes, Finance Committee is half an hour before the council meeting on a regular basis, so I would show up to those as well. As, you can call around to Elmwood or Osceola. I attend those committee meetings as well as their council meetings at no cost.
Okay.
And so, no, that is standard practice as well.
Thank you. You mentioned, because of our growing city size, we're going to be dealing with MS4 issues.
Exactly.
Stormwater, and you contracted out to WSB.
Yes.
Per your paperwork. Can you give us, or maybe Jay wants to answer this, whichever, can you tell us what we would be paying? Because we're very likely going to be doing traffic planning and MS4 work calling on our resources in the not too distant future. And we need to know what those costs are going to be for engineering and design.
Thank you. Is it okay, Angela?
You go ahead.
Here I thought I was going to be
Somewhere
here the whole time and not be able to talk, which is
You
not
go
easy for me to do. Mayor and Council, just to immediately address the MS4 issue, we're aware that that's something that's going to be coming before the City of Hudson. It's something that we've dealt with in a number of communities that we're currently serving. And what we have is really a turnkey type of operation for the MS4 services. We can, and it's customized to each individual city. In some cities, there's staff members there that are taking on some of that work. We're training them and showing them how to do that particular work, whether it be reporting or just the inspections. Like we'll go out with public works staff, show them what is expected in terms of the inspections and the like. So that cost can be very little, but in some communities where they're asking us to do all of it, that's ranged from $4,000 to $5,000 per year to do that. If we're doing everything, and that's the whole report, the helping with the inspections and things of that nature. Whereas if it's simply helping the staff, that we just customize that based on what your needs are.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Just to add, also in the proposal, we've listed out the hourly services or hourly costs for all of the different specialties. So, it's not just a range, so you know what is there. And before they would start, or we would start any project, scope of services and a detailed budget, and maybe you say, we don't want that 4 hours of inspection, Tom can handle it. Or, we're willing to be flexible as far as to make sure we are all on the same page of the level of service you want and what the cost is going to be up front.
Thank you.
I have a question, a couple questions. Is there any contemplation or, to your knowledge, any change in ownership going to be happening in the next 6 months? I mean,
No.
Okay.
We bought it, I live here,
Okay,
I'm not
all right.
doing a thing.
I
No,
just want to
that is
ask, I'm
small.
asking everybody the same question.
Yep, no,
And
that
what
is
percentage of your business is municipalities versus public, or is versus private?
We have, right now, 90% of our business is public.
Okay?
When Scott actually came over to Stevens in 2003, and then I came in 2007. Prior to that, they were mostly private. When Scott came, both Scott and I have the municipal background, and that was our full intention, is when we took over, we were going to change the focus and bring basically a new life to Stevens, and we have done that, and we are 90% public, and we hope to make that 100%.
Okay, thank you. And then the question I have, and I'll try and ask this better than I did the last time. So when you are reviewing things for the city of Hudson, for a private developer to look at what they're doing, do you charge them the same? I know you charge it through the city, but do you charge them the same rate you charge us?
Yes, we do charge the same rate.
Okay, thank you. That's all I had. Sure.
Okay.
Project management
Yes.
methodologies. When we come to council, there's been a number of times when we've had projects that continue to slip. And you talked about this a little bit earlier with, what would you call it, your fee for-
Liquidated.
Your penalty for slipping.
Liquidated
Yeah, the liquidated
damages.
to the contractor, yes.
The, let's assume that you've got something that isn't delivered, and your subcontractor is gonna be 3 weeks late. How are you gonna handle that, let's do 2-1, first there.
Okay.
How are you gonna bring that to us, to be able to communicate back to us with a plan?
Well, first of all, I will be very honest with what issue is out there, and I will also bring the solution of what we're going to do. I mean, I'm not going to say, well, sorry, it's late. I always look for what the solution is. So whether that's rescheduling or actually telling the contractor they're going to reschedule, let's say the sign is not going to be in, but they still haven't done all their landscaping. Well, work on your landscaping, revise your schedule. There's always a Microsoft project, you always have your critical path, and that's where they need to follow. And so whether they need to shift around things, that needs to happen. And we need to, general practice is to meet with them. Well, obviously we'll be out there on probably a daily basis, but to meet with them on a weekly basis, to follow up on schedule, to see where they're at in their critical path, to make sure it doesn't come to the very end, so we can try to catch it up front.
Second question.
Okay.
You're in the middle of a project and you realize we missed something.
Yep.
And it's pretty big. What's your process for change orders?
Did we miss something, or did the contractor miss something? Because it's two processes.
Give me them both.
Well, I'm just saying, if we miss something, that's our fault, and that's our problem. We need to change that on our time and make that correction.
Okay.
If the contractor missed something, if the contractor missed something, they need to put it back in. I mean, I'm trying to think of exactly how to tell you
I'm looking for the communication back to us. You're sitting at your desk going, uh-oh, we're in trouble here. What am I going to tell the council?
right.
Well,
Obviously,
it could be conditions that are beyond your,
Yeah.
I mean, you just communicate, I assume it's like.
right.
Identify the problem, propose a solution, but.
Yep. Communication, obviously, yes, I will provide you written communication instantly. We'll send you emails, we'll send you a letter. If council meeting's coming up, obviously I'll be at every council meeting making a presentation. I will get that information out to you as soon as possible. Obviously, I'll work with staff as needed, whether if there's something that they need to be brought into. Communication is usually not a problem for me. I will disseminate that information as soon as possible, and look for the solution. I guess, am I answering you? Maybe I'm not answering.
Well, you are.
Sorry.
I was just addressing some issues where we've had, shall we say, there hasn't been ownership.
Right.
And I'm looking for ownership of, yes, we have a problem, here's the communication, this is how I'm going to get it to you.
Okay.
He's all about that.
No, and that's why I say, is it our problem, you know, did we cause the problem or someone else? Because I will own up to, if we cause the problem, that's our problem. You know, we will bring the solution, we will fix it on our time, because that does not need to happen.
Anyone else have any questions?
I just have a comment.
I want to ask the same question,
Go
just
ahead.
so it's
Might as
consistent. What is the most complex project you've worked on, and what made it complex?
The most complex, and I guess, and fun, the city of Cottage Grove, as I said, during their boom time, they annexed 1,300 acres of land called their West Draw. And during that, it was like playing Sim City, for lack of better words. I mean, I had 1,300 acres of raw land. They said, put in all the, design all the trunk utilities, a 4-lane collector road. Of course, also add in the Kohl's store that was right at the corner of 80th and Hardwood. So we had a lot of factors, but it was doing a layout of that whole 1,300 acres, but we also at the same time did all of the scheduling, as well as to make sure that we would have the infrastructure in place as the developments came in, and also we had all of the financing for it. We had all of, we knew they have impact fees and area charges, so we basically said, okay, we know what money's coming in at what time to pay for this infrastructure, and we were able to stage it out over a 10-year period. Of course, they built it all in 7 years, but they accelerated it. But it was challenging from the standpoint, it was a wide open slate, and those developers were knocking at the door, ready to go. So, but it turned out to be a very fun project. And there was also, on the other side, the anti-development people were right there as well. So it got fairly controversial as well. So.
Randy, you had another comment?
I just want to commend that. I think that you put a lot of forethought in the representative projects, and your emphasis on customer service, site observation, and managing those projects is what really impressed me with your presentation. Thank you.
It is very important to us.
Any other questions? Sure, absolutely.
Compensation, Angela?
Yes.
Is there an opportunity for the city to work with you on cost not to exceed or percentage basis, or what are your suggestions on compensation on major projects?
Oh, definitely. We operate as either hourly not to exceed or a lump sum. And how we'll get to that is we will define the scope of work, and we will basically have a spreadsheet that shows you all the tasks and the personnel and the hours allotted to those personnel. So you will know up front how we're approaching the project and what it will cost.
Do you have any flat fee projects? Do you charge by the fee? In other words, if it's $1 million project, we have 18%. We have a flat fee, and we don't get to see any of the other things. Do you do anything like that?
We provide proposals on all of our projects. You can ask our existing clients. I mean, we will have a letter proposal for each project. We don't do a fee curve.
Okay.
To us, it doesn't matter. It's four plan sheets, whether oil costs $50 a barrel or $100 a barrel. It's still 4 plan sheets, or whatever it may be. So we are about being upfront. Obviously, the level of citizen participation may fluctuate it. It depends on what you want to see from us. Or construction sometimes will fluctuate, but we will bring that forth if there's an issue, but we are very upfront with what we will charge.
Okay. Another?
Yes. Reading your proposal, Angela, I came up with a question in my mind that seemed to be a small one, but it's turned into kind of a nagging one, and I just don't know what to make of it. All of the proposals we received included letters of recommendation, which should happen, and you were no slouch at that either. You have 5 letters of recommendation in your packet, but all 5 of them deal specifically with work on ice arenas. And knowing as you do that we have no planned work for ice arenas, I'm wondering why there aren't letters of recommendation dealing with the kind of work we're talking about.
And there's a letter from the city of Cottage Grove that specifically deals with my work as their city engineer. as
But
the
also
city engineer.
refers to your
Well,
company's work with
yep.
their ice arena.
Well, because the company as a whole, first of all, you need to know that I'm in front of you, and I did that work for the city of Cottage Grove, but you also have to trust that the company behind me can handle these large projects and can handle all of these projects. We did the site design, we did the utilities to it. Yes, they said, they talked about Scott's involvement, but we also did the public facilitation and presentations of these projects, and we did the construction observation. We were doing the budget, doing the schedule. All of these projects, whether it's an ice arena, whether it's a utilities, street, they all follow the same procedure. I mean, they all require the communication, they all require the project management, they all have budgets. And so that's where we do have that, but specifically the Cottage Grove one speaks directly to my work as the city engineer. And yes, the other ones do have the ice rink component, but I felt that they were pertinent because it shows that our company as a whole can handle these projects.
Thank you.
Anything else? Angela, you wanted some
Can
time?
I do one more? Yep.
Oh, absolutely.
I just wanted to wrap up with the Why Choose Stevens. Our investment in the community. Obviously, work here, live here. I don't need to allot time to, come here to look at your projects. I'm here and I live it. Past experience, I've worked as your city engineer in the past, and we have the experience. The company as a whole has the experience to deal and has done City of Hudson projects. The proven community and professional leadership. I've taken leadership roles within the community, at the board levels, as well as for the American Public Works Association. On the Minnesota side, it's 900 members. I was their president, and now I'm serving as their delegate at the national level. So I'm their direct representative. So I've proven that I have the strong communication and leadership skills and being a strong advocate for the city. Again, this is my tax dollars as well. I mean, I'm going to be watching out for the projects. This is my community. So I have the passion to be here. So with that, thank you all for the opportunity.
Thank you very much.
Illinois, and Iowa in terms of infrastructure support. We have listed here on this board the communities where we are the consultant municipal engineer. You can see it's an extensive list with a number of cities in the state of Wisconsin that we represent. FOLT is 675 people providing full-service municipal engineering services in those areas that I just described. We have an office just across the river, 10 minutes from here, which I like a lot. It's a short drive for me. Dennis, Karen, and I all work out of that office. It's an office of 85 people. So it's a second largest office next to the headquarters of football, Green Bay, Wisconsin, which is our headquarters. Yes, thank you.
Pandering will get you nowhere.
Foth has 3 divisions. We have an infrastructure division, which we're obviously a part of. We have an industrial group that does process engineering and equipment design for companies like 3M, Kraft, Miller Coors Brewing, Procter & Gamble, large companies like that. We also have an environmental engineering group that provides full-service environmental work from phase 1, phase 2's remediation, soil remediation. Last year, Nate Klett, who lives here in Hudson and works in our office, worked on the Fox River doing a evaluation of the water quality as a result of the many years of industrial discharge into the Fox River. So we have a lot of capability, can look at the St. Croix as well as water resources within the city itself. So we're excited about that and having that ability to serve you in that area. Because we're so diversified, we have not been affected by the economy as maybe some of the other firms have. We've actually grown over this period. We've added staff and we've added revenue during this period. From our actual 2009 revenue, we had an increased projection at the beginning of 2010, and we exceeded that at the end of 2010 by almost 10%. And I think that reflects what we present, what we do, and the skills that we have as an organization to manage ourselves well. And what that does for the city of Hudson is it allows you to have some continuity and assurance that the staff and the people that we present are going to be with you for a long time. We're not going to disappear. We're here. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to Dennis, who's going to talk a little bit more about how best we're going to serve you. Thank you, and go Packers.
The other point I wanted to mention, which is said in our proposal, was that I would be the primary contact. I would be the consulting city engineer of record for our team. And Tom is going to provide quality oversight, being the eyes and ears in the community, and make sure that services we provide would be quality services. And we want to do a good job. We don't want it to reflect bad on us, the city. Like he said, we're here to stay. Wanted to touch briefly on this board here, the second handout in your packet, or the 3 sheets I handed out. And there's no secret. We used to work for another firm that is providing your engineering services now, and there are reasons that we chose not to remain there. Some of those, but what I wanted to focus on was some of the knowledge that we have with the city. I worked here from about mid-1999 through 2005 and functioned as a city engineer then, and worked with Denny and Tom and a few other public works directors during that time. Really enjoyed the time I had spent here. Probably what a lot of people didn't know or council has changed somewhat in that time, was that Karen was basically functioning as the assistant city engineer and did majority of the design. And it was a busy time in the city, 2000, 2001, 2, 3, with the annexation area and other projects going on. So we have a lot of knowledge of Hudson. All 3 of us do, taking it from different angles. And the other thing I wanted to point out is that institutional knowledge is often with the people that are providing the service, and we have a lot of that institutional knowledge tends to stay with the people that are providing the service, as well as the company that's providing the service to some level. As far as being an experienced team, 3 of us here have 72 years of experience amongst us, which is also how old the company is. That's, I guess, coincidental. Like I mentioned, I had functioned here as a city engineer for 6 years, and I functioned as the city engineer in Oak Park Heights, Minnesota for 10 years, and along with Karen, again, as the assistant city engineer. So we have continuity in that regard. Tom has served for city engineer, consulting city engineer for 6 communities, and also as a public works director for one in Waseca for a period of time. So we do have that experience of being a consulting city engineer. On top of that, I wanted to point out too that the three of us, have our own technical expertise too. Something I feel strongly about as being a city engineer is being able to do the work or have done the work. And my background is transportation, geometric design, roadways, but also more of a comprehensive planning and funding, including impact fees. Tom has done a lot of that same work, but also has more specialized expertise in working with architects, landscape architects, and building projects. And then again, just as general public works issues. And Karen is kind of our stormwater guru who has a lot of stormwater design and modeling experience, MS4 permitting, which the city could be seeing depending on the new population with the new census coming out. And also Karen is LEED certified, or LEED accredited, and works with a lot of sustainable type projects and site design. So I think that's important when you're representing a city as a city engineer. The other aspect of that is the inspection and the field services, and we have staff that have done that for a number of years. One thing that is not in the proposal is that we actually be using another individual that lives in western Wisconsin, Kurt Olsvig, who used to work with us and has about 10, 12 years experience doing just primarily city infrastructure. As far as understanding the infrastructure needs of Hudson, I show some of it on that board. I'll get to that in a minute. We know a lot of the issues. We don't know all of them. Won't claim that, but we know a lot of the background. We know a lot of the issues that the city is facing, and feel that we have a lot of expertise and capacity to do that work for you. One thing in that regard is that I know the city has done a comprehensive plan recently, and I saw the 5-year capital improvement plan or budget for the parks improvements, and I think that would be a very valuable tool to have for the infrastructure. To plan things out can save you money by helping coordinating work that you know is coming with other projects and getting them done timely in season, but also making sure that there's overlap with other city departments, surrounding townships and other governmental agencies. We also have, from a grant and funding expertise, we have a gentleman in our Milwaukee office that's all he does is grants and funding for Wisconsin communities. We provided just a small snapshot of some of those in the proposal, but I've got, actually there's about 3 pages worth that's just short of $200 million in grants that he's acquired over probably a 10 or 12 year period. A lot of it's CDBG funding, but a lot of it is water utility funding, local road improvement funding, and other infrastructure funding. So that would be one of our primary goals when working with the city, was to try to find as much grant and as much other funding, whether it's low income or low interest funding or other road improvement funding. The other piece of the funding and grants is I've got quite a bit of experience with impact fees, which aren't always the funnest topic to deal with. And I know there's new regulations with that it has to be used up in a certain period of time, which the city is coming up against. And there are improvements that need to be done yet that those impact fees were based on. So the city needs to decide to build those depending on the development that's coming up, or not the other option, which is having to refund it to the developers or the residents, which will be an accounting nightmare. But I believe they were set up appropriately to cover the infrastructure that still needed to be built. We would definitely be an advocate for the city. We know all the times engineers like to think they have the answers for everything. We usually do, right? Yeah. Technically speaking, but there's always there's a wide variety of other topics that go into making a decision, and we would like, we'll give you the best technical decision from an engineering perspective, but whether it's other budgetary issues or politics or residents' concerns, we will be an advocate for whatever the final decision is that the council would like to go forward with. Along with that, like I mentioned, we'll give you our best engineering judgment, and we will tell you what you need to hear. We're not won't always tell you what you want to hear. But again, we will be an advocate for what the final decision is. And feel that's important to let you know your options, albeit many times they're not popular. It's not a lot of fun standing up and giving you information like that, but it's something we do, have to do. That's why we're here. We have relationships with many of the governmental agencies around. I know many of the other firms do also, but with WSDOT, we work with folks there, the DNR, Department of Workforce Development, St. Croix County, some of the townships, and a couple of the surrounding cities. So we have those relationships with some of those folks. I believe we use some references too from some of the cities in the more regional area that we work with, or that other full staff have worked with. And we definitely have a commitment to the city of Hudson. And what I mean by that is, again, we would like to form a long-term relationship and based on trust. And I know trust is only earned, and that's what we would strive for. Again, Tom being a resident, being a business owner, being on other committees in the city, has, I'm speaking for Tom, but is dedicated to the community and would definitely want to provide top quality service. A few other things we would do is, depending on the city's desire, we would, offer up office hours if that was of any benefit. Not pushing it, but something to think about if there's a need. Probably better in busier times when there's more development going on, setting certain office hours, and so developers and other entities know that we're here certain hours, but otherwise we're a very short distance away. And the other thing is I'm also an owner in the firm, and we have the authority and the flexibility to work with the city, and we can sign contracts. We can work with the city on everything from our fees to our services, and we have that authority to do so. We don't have to go back to corporate. The other board was in the proposal, but what was in there was the numbers that you see, and what those were showing was some of the engineering issues we know that are coming up, not all of them, maybe some of the more important ones. For example, Wisconsin Street reconstruction. We know the city got a grant, and that's fantastic. There's still quite a gap, the city has to match, and that project was, I think it was on the books about 12, 13 years ago, and I know there was assessment issues, which is, funding the remainder of the balance is going to be another issue depending on how much road funds are saved up. And working with, for example, when we did Stage Line Road, that was a assessed project, and to get a little creative, a little bit different scenario since you had 3 developers that were wanting to get the road built. But we came up with a combination of property frontage and trip generation and tried to make a fair assessment, and that's all they wanted, as long as it was fair. Now that'll be a little different animal with being in an existing area and a residential area, but as long as you can try to show that what you're proposing is fair, if there are assessments involved, we've done that. Carmichael Road, signals and road improvements are another one I put on there as important items. I know that signal timings are always something that needs improving, and we have traffic engineers and in-house as well as sub-consultants that we work with that have done a lot of Wisconsin-based signal projects and signal timing synchronization. Other than that, I think I'm not going to go through all of them, but I know MS4 permitting is another important topic for the stormwater compliance and the NPDES, National Pollution Discharge Elimination System permitting. That is another mandate that will be not costing the city money, because it's a good thing to have to do, but it is something that need to set aside funds for, or some cities have created stormwater utilities, things like that. But it is a system of keeping track of maintenance and mapping the entire ponding and stormwater system in the city, which you do have a lot of that done already. The last thing I wanted to point out was the color on the map is just a graphical representation of the list of projects and developments that we have familiarity with in the proposal. So the orange is anything that was a project that we designed and constructed. We, meaning Karen and I were the primary people that worked on those projects back in that early 2000s, including Stage Line Road, Vine Street, Hanley Road Phase 2, a lot of the pathways, and some of the signal work that was put in at Vine and Carmichael and Hanley. The green colors are just all the developments that we reviewed during that 6-year period, which was a lot of work going on at that time. And the other orange piece there, that big blocks, is Red Cedar Canyon and Heritage Greens Phase 1, where we did design all the streets and utilities in the development. Some of the other stuff, the pink areas are just studies or feasibility reports that we were involved with. The yellow areas are other public projects that, say for example, even in the business park, business park has their own engineer, but the city engineer still reviewed those plans to make sure it met city details and specifications and met with the overall big picture of comprehensive planning in the area, stormwater design and that type of thing. And then there were a few other developments that either didn't go forward or were outside the city boundary but were extraterritorial reviews that we were involved with. So that was just a graphical picture to show that we have quite a bit of experience in the past with the city. Other than that, I just wanted to close with saying we are, again, very excited about being here and having the opportunity to present to you our qualifications, no matter what the city decides to do going forward. And also wanted to point out that you're at this point of being this far and might be wondering, making a change is a pain, and there's all these issues that you have to do to make a change, which the actual act of making a physical change isn't that complicated. And we have a transition plan that we can share with you if the city decides, to go with FOF, that we would spend a certain amount of overlap with your existing city engineer and on our dime attend meetings, meet with them, meet with staff. And also if the city has the right to request any files and that thing, other documents from your current engineer, we can help with those electronic files and hard files, everything from plans and specs to electronic base maps and GIS files. And again, if there was any cost associated with that, we could work with the city to credit that amount if there's a concern about cost. So, but other than that, we, again, very much appreciate the opportunity to be here. And if you have any questions for any of us, we'll be happy to try to answer them.
Questions, council?
Do you want to go first this time?
Well,
I think Mary should get to go first.
Yeah.
I am looking at your compensation, and I appreciate that there's no charge for meetings and public works and finance committee meetings, as well as transition period consulting. That was a personal big deal for me. Questions I asked other interviewees. The sheet I'm not seeing, which I'm assuming that you have, are reimbursable expenses.
I think it's in there that we're saying, no, those are included in our hourly rates.
I see that too. So that means basically that 149 for a project direct. I mean, I guess I want that spelled out for me a little more. I'm reading it. I don't know if I'm just misreading everything or.
Yeah, I guess I don't know how to say it without saying there are no reimbursable expenses. Those are included in the hourly rates.
Mileage, copies, everything is all
Mileage
one
is, I
flat
think, is
rate.
down there as just the standard rate. It might be a line down below farther.
No,
I'm not seeing it.
There's no mention of mileage in your proposal.
Is it there?
No.
Okay. I thought there was, but let me do a quick check here. Yeah, I mean, we show our, well, this isn't about mileage, but we show our hourly rate table, but down here are the rates that we're proposing for myself and Karen.
So you're saying any copies you make, anything you drive, anything is within that, for you, example, $115 an hour?
Right, for any of the photocopying or Xeroxing or that.
Mileage?
But, no, I did have a,
Mileage is included.
bottom of page 552, sorry. It wasn't,
Okay.
it's not trying to be hidden, but it was just a cost that we said auto
Yeah, it's a very.
auto miles are being reimbursed.
Oh,
at the
sorry.
standard rate.
Okay.
Sorry, I
That's
had to
fine.
find it too,
We were
sorry.
showing a,
So outside of mileage, then, many other reimbursable expenses are like copies and all that, those, photocopies black and white, photocopies colored, so on and
no,
so forth.
we're not gonna nickel and dime. That was our whole intent of
But
wrapping
that was a
it,
better way of asking the question. Are you gonna nickel and dime us,
wrapping it into our rates. We just wanna make it easy.
Okay, thank you.
You understand that we're not getting paid $149 an hour individually, I wish.
Right,
Okay,
right.
that there's an overhead that we charge above and beyond our
Sure.
salaries that we're paid, and we consider those costs to be part of that.
Right.
And our overhead's a little bit lower than it has been in the past in other places we work, so that's why we're using, our specific rates we're using a little bit lower. The PM1 and the PE1 rates.
Sure, thank you.
And Mary, keep in mind that, you look at 675 people, that's a big firm, but we're a very flat firm. There's not a lot of fat. Dennis talked about he's an owner. He works.
Right.
Our CEO works. Okay, we're a flat organization. Our people are billable. And one of the reasons I went to work for them is because of that, because that's what it's about. It's about engineering. It's not about HR or accounting or these other, they're important things, but it's about engineering. And that's what I love about FOTH, is that's what we're focused on.
Thank you. Go ahead. Anyone else?
Just springboarding off of your mention about the $115 hourly fee for you, Dennis, but your attendance at council and public works and finance committee meetings are at no charge. Would you be willing to extend that to park board meetings? Because park board works very closely with public works.
Yes, I definitely would. I didn't list them specifically because in the past I hadn't attended many,
Sure.
but definitely.
Kind of an odd question. There are 5 survey firms right in, a couple in Hudson and 3 more right around us. But for survey work, you go to Menominee, to Cedar Corporation. Why is that?
We actually have a strategic alliance with Cedar Corp. We've been working with them for about 3 years, sharing services and also staying out of each other's faces. We provide wastewater work and other specialty work, and they provide other engineering services for us. And actually, just recently, we've even formalized that alliance even more with a formal agreement. And therefore, we use their services, and if they provide services, they're not going to charge for an hour's worth of drive.
Okay.
So we're working with a firm that we've worked with for a number of years.
And we're actually sharing staff now together.
Oh.
Yeah, there are some Cedar Corp staff in our Green Bay and Madison offices.
Couple questions, and still working with the fees, and I'm trying to get this, so you're willing to send us up to 4 people, and you're at 115, Karen's at 102, so we're at 217 on any given day if you're both here, and then office hours between 1 or 2 of you times 8 hours, and then you say you got a 15-minute stand-up meeting at every everybody involved in the task. Are you charging for that? I mean, to me, it looks like we're going to end up getting charged for 4 people's times.
No, actually thought that might be a question that was raised. Typically, there'll only be one of us. If Tom's the eyes and ears, but he's not going to be charging time driving through the city on his way home, on his way back.
That's right.
If there's one of us here, there will only be typically one of us here. If we're working on projects, that's typically not hourly in design. We would get into a lump sum negotiation or a fee. And if we have hourly rates, if we have office hours, we would set up something with the city where, if we're not working on city work, we could still be here, but we're not going to charge you for it. It's not our intent to have 2 or 3 or 4 people billing the city at one time for one function.
Okay, now, and ideally, you live on the other side of Bloomington. I don't know where Karen lives, but you're going to charge us mileage every time you're here?
The only time is charged historically, and we're not even going to be doing that now, is from our office. First of all, if I come to a council meeting or a parks meeting, I'm not charging any time, period. But if I come over during the day to an issue or a project, the maximum time or mileage that would be charged would be from our office, which is 10 miles away.
Okay.
And if, again, if on the way home, that's on my dime.
In the past, Dennis, and you know what kind of things we've run into with our projects and how irritated I have become with the engineering firms or whatnot. You've probably seen that firsthand.
Yeah.
Observation and inspections are huge.
Right.
I don't think it was done in the last few projects we've had. And I want to see someone out there using their time wisely to inspect our projects and give me a little bit of the experience and the credentials of your observation and your inspection team.
Like I mentioned, we have both, we list Ron in our proposal, but we've also been working recently with Kurt Olsvig, and I can get you his resume if need be. He's got about 10 or 12 years of experience. He's similar to, I don't know if you remember Brian Kelly when he was working in the city for your existing engineer. But part of the function of the construction observer, a lot of it depends on the city staff direction. I know in the past, the water utility department would want someone on site full-time. And Public Works, prior to Tom being there, had wanted a minimal amount of inspection. And a lot of that, we get a little conflicted sometimes, but we would work with the department heads as well as if the council had any desire. We feel there is a need, a benefit to be out there. Most of the time work is going on. And that's the other reason also for another argument, a whole different topic of the most of the city infrastructure being done publicly. But if it's not, have a city representative watching private engineers working. We feel strongly that, and most of us started our careers in inspection. They design engineers coming out of school, spend 5 years out in the field learning the inspection, and that's invaluable. So we know how things go together, but it's that inspector that's out there day to day, and both Kurt and Ron have good relationships with contractors in the area. Done a few projects just this past fall. One was with Monarch, and I can't remember who the other one was with, Pember, I think.
And you hold them accountable with liquid damages?
Go ahead.
What I've done, Randy, is if they're not performing, I don't hesitate to call their bonding company, because they can't work if they don't have bond capability. And I'm going to give them a chance. I'm going to give them warnings, get them out there. If they're not going to perform, then I'm going to make that call, and I've done it. Now, they don't like it, and they get out there. It helps.
There's also a trend with consulting engineers for liability reasons, not to get too involved. To say, well, we can only tell the owner, the city, what's going on and can't stop the contractor from working. But we would make sure that, that's done that hour. That if we see something that's not right, we can work with the contractor, and our inspectors do that. But at the end of the day, it's the owner's call, but it's our responsibility to make sure that, a day or two doesn't go by or more if we see something not right.
You're saying you wouldn't intervene if Tom called you and said,
oh, yeah,
you would intervene?
Yeah. Yeah, we would intervene regardless, but we would bring up the issue to Tom and say, hey, this is what's going on. You're the owner, you need to make the call, but here's what we would recommend. And we need to do this now.
You have to keep in mind that the contract with the contractor is with the city, not with us. So the ultimate authority and hammer is the city's to enforce it.
We're paying you to consult those projects.
Exactly. And we'll do that, but ultimately, we have to come back to you as a city to be able to do the ultimate enforcement here. But we're going to stay on our contractors to make sure, or your contractors, to make sure that they're performing. But at the end of the day, the legal obligation, we don't have a contract with them, you do.
That's where our problem runs.
Question, rates versus private individuals versus the city. Do you charge the same if you're reviewing a project for us? They're doing a development, and are rates the same for what you would charge the city to review those projects and say, yes, it's a good project for the city?
Yeah.
Because we have been billing through the city,
Right.
and then paying the engineering firm. Are the rates the same, or do you charge the private developer higher rates than you charge the city?
Historically, we've used higher private development rates, and that's what we would like to do. There is a little bit more burden on the consulting engineer if you're approving someone else's plans, that you're not going to look at every single design calculation, you're going to look at the bigger things. So there's a little bit more liability for firms to approve someone else's plans, and that extra fee is typically or historically what's covered that. And again, that was open to discussion and negotiation, I think, is the way we left it.
Okay. Second thing is, what percentage of your business is city or municipal work versus private? Roughly. Again, I don't expect you to have.
Company-wide, I'm not sure. I know
Okay.
our office is about, our infrastructure folks in Lake Elm was probably 90 public. 95 public, 5 to 10 private.
Okay.
And by private, that means sometimes we sub to architects or landscape architects, which a lot of their projects are city projects.
Okay.
And some of them are private projects.
Yeah, we're doing a fire station with an architect in the Twin Cities for the city of Shakopee. You know, it's a private job because technically we're working for the architect, but it's public.
Thank you. And the last question, or second to last question, I said, are you aware of any change in ownership or possible change in ownership in your company at the present time?
In our company, no.
Okay. Anybody else? Questions? Well, we'd like to thank you folks for coming in. Thank you.
Thanking you for this opportunity. I've been in this business for 18 years as a municipal engineer, and for those of you that don't know, since January of 2007, I've served as the Hudson city engineer. And during that time in Hudson, I've really enjoyed working with all of you council folks, staff. It's been a real pleasure, so I thank you for that. With me tonight is Jerry Borden. He's the CEO of Bonestro, and he's here to, if you have any questions about the direction of the company or, you know, corporate or really anything in general. Jerry, you want to say a few words?
Yeah. I just also wanted to say that we appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight. I want to thank you for the opportunity we've had to serve you. I'm here to answer any questions you have about the firm. Of course, I believe that the firm is your best strategic partner going forward. And if you have any questions for me on that, I'd be pleased to answer that. It's also a little bit personal. At Bonestro, we really care about Hudson. Over the 35 or so years that I've been doing this, at least 3 or 4 occasions, I had the opportunity to serve in Hudson. I worked on the infrastructure south of I-94. I worked on the Lake Malilu sewer project and various other projects along the way. So I have a personal interest and stake in this also. So I'll be prepared to answer any of your questions you may have.
Well, thank you, Jerry. From our perspective, there's 3 reasons why we feel Bonestro is the right consultant for the city of Hudson. And those 3 reasons are our construction services, our specialty services, and the cost-effective service that we've provided you in the past, and some of the ideas that we have for you moving forward. And so to start off, I'd like to talk about construction services. And, you know, when you're looking at the city engineer position, you know, it's more than just the advice and counsel that we provide as engineers and the infrastructure planning and implementation of those sorts of things. For every hour I spent on the city engineer stuff, our construction services are spending 3-4 hours. And what they're working on is you know, construction observation for city projects as well as the private development stuff that goes on in town. Okay, and the one thing we have that our competitors do not is a person named Sandy Schmidt. And I don't know if all of you know her or not, but she comes with 23 years of experience. She's been working in Hudson since 2004, and she's really integrated herself into the public works staff and is very well respected, not only by public works staff but by contractors, and she deals very well with the citizens of Hudson. Not only Public Works, but because of the private development that goes on, she has to interact with the wastewater utility and the water utility. And when you look back at when Denny Christopherson was the water utility director, some of the things DC and Sandy did on a weekly basis was drive all the construction sites and look at the problems and resolutions and what the expectation of the water utility was. And so I like to think of her as DC trained, and she's very well respected by all the water utility staff as well. And even, well, when DC was out on medical leave for a while, he had asked Sandy to not only look at bonus row projects and some of these private things, he was also asking her to look at some of the water utility work that was going on concurrently being done by others. Not to besmirch what others were doing for the water utility, but he knew that he could rely on Sandy, and I believe even told some of his water staff that any construction-related questions go to Sandy. Behind Sandy, we also have Dave Hansen. And Dave Hansen, he's been working on Hudson projects off and on since the late 70s. And he's our foremost expert on street reconstruction and maintenance. And where he came in very beneficial or very helpful is not only like with some of the detail updates and standard specifications, but when we had that issue with the seal coating, some of the cosmetic problems that we were having up at Beaneman Farms last year, Dave helped us work through those issues. Also, he does volunteer for this local road improvement board and helping solve premature failures and doing some investigation on how to correct those. He was able to tap into his network and actually got a MnDOT expert to come over here and to help us reaffirm what we are seeing and suggest corrective measures. And that was all done in his spare time. And since he was a MnDOT employee, we actually had to physically drive him across the river because he couldn't take his state vehicle across state lines there. That kind of leads us into our specialty services. And as your city engineer, I'm a generalist, know a little bit about everything, but from time to time you do need those specialty services. And I have a few of them listed here, but Bonus Row, we're a company of 350 employees, 4 or 5 offices in Wisconsin, but our primary office is St. Paul, and with 200 or so employees back there, we have everything. I have everything I need down the hall, up above me, down below me, whatever it may be. Some of the issues coming up, GIS. We have GIS experts, and I know that's going to be an issue coming up for not only Public Works, but the water utility, wastewater. We can help them work through what they're going to want to see as far as what level of GIS mapping they'll want in the future. We can help them do that. We have people like Ron Benson who do bridge inspections, and he's 100 feet down the hall from me, not in our MEC 1 office or what have you. He's there. He does bridge inspections regularly for 150 different bridges for cities and counties throughout the region. We have people like John Shardlow, who's a pretty well-respected planner in the area. He recently met with Denny Darnold and the former mayor to talk about some of the Carmichael corridor issues and expressed his willingness to kind of facilitate a workshop between planning and the council. He'd be very good at it. In addition, when you start looking at the Carmichael corridor type of issues, that's going to involve traffic people, transportation people, urban designers, et cetera, et cetera. That's all 30 minutes away. Last week, I got a call from the Western Wisconsin Intergovernmental Collaborative. I believe you're a member of that. They were looking for us to give a presentation on what cities can do to attract businesses. And so we have a couple of planners in our office that do that quite regularly, do those training sessions. And so come the end of March, I would encourage you to attend that. That's actually going to be in Hudson, that meeting. And so we have those specific expertise. And we have people like market researchers. If you want to know if Hudson can support another big box or what have you. We have those types of talents. Other talents, we have the water, the wastewater, kind of the run-of-the-mill stuff, the wetland folks, et cetera, all at our disposal. Let's see, did I touch upon anything? We do quite a bit of work in Wisconsin for the WISDOT, $3 to $5 million a year regularly doing their inspections. We have a lot of people that are certified to do that sort of work. A lot of people are registered, like myself, in Wisconsin. We also have funding experts. I should touch upon that a little bit. I'm part of our funding team, and I've given presentations in the past on grant preparation and writing, but I'm not the be-all, end-all, know everything. There's a lot of folks in our office that are very specific to, say, brownfield or economic development, et cetera. I myself try to keep current with what's going on in Wisconsin. Last November, I attended the Rural Water Association funding workshop, and in light of what was happening in Wisconsin, I helped you out with that grant application there, and that project's coming up, and to help better prepare myself for the next steps, should you proceed with going with Bonestro to continue on with that Wisconsin Street project. I've attended a lacrosse session on the law changes on pedestrian, bike and pedestrian, and the new rules for that sort of state and federal funding and what that's going to mean to those types of projects. The third reason, as far as why Bonestro is right for Hudson, is the cost effectiveness, and I want to talk about what we've done in the past and where we'd like to go work with you in the future here. I mentioned we have a deep bench. We work for a lot of communities in the area. I personally work with St. Joseph to the north. We did $3.5 million worth of construction last year. We were recently, 2 weeks ago, reappointed in Oak Park Heights. We've been in Woodbury for a very long time, Cottage Grove. We're in the area. We're close by. And really bodes well for our cost-effective, responsive type of service. Recent projects that we've helped you out on, a lot of things have changed since I started in 2007 with the economy. And we understand that budgets are tight. And we've tried to work with you on that. When I came on board, my rate was $97 an hour, and we have not raised that, and that's what we're proposing me for in 2011, okay? And when you came out with this proposal to look at the city engineer position, I got together with the likes of Jerry and some of our other folks and said, well, what could we do to better improve our services? And that's where I suggested, well, it would be helpful, I believe, for the city if I maintained regular office hours. And that way, I could work closer with the Denny Darnolds and the Tom Zulis and the Tim Cruises of the world. And if I was in City Hall, either one full day or 2 half days, whatever works for you guys, you can come in and talk to me or get my input, or we can go check things out, whatever it is. And so what that would mean, though, however, going from regular office hours, that would probably double the amount of time that I would be spending as your city engineer, and you probably, since your budget would have a difficulty supporting that, we are proposing to cut back that 97 to $50 an hour for the routine services. So that's what we're suggesting there. And it's also a benefit to staff. A lot of times we have to meet with developers and help them concept so they know what we're looking for, help them get through the process efficiently and effectively. They would know I'd be here on a regular basis, and we could schedule those meetings appropriately. So I think it would be a very efficient use of your staff as well. Other than that, I would like to point to a couple of projects. Again, the world has changed a little bit. We've worked with Tom to kind of try to do things differently. And I'd like to point to, the Cooley Road project, where Tom wrote the specifications we reviewed and commented on them, just provided that quality assurance. Also put together some of the details and the mapping for him. And then he just utilized us during construction for those areas where we could really offer some value. Case in point, after it was milled, Sandy went out there and walked it with Tom and helped determine what areas need to be patched before they overlaid the entire road. Another example, the 2010 street improvement project. We wrote the specifications, helped Tom out with some of the pre-construction, getting the contractor going off the ground, but then we backed away and let Tom take care of the rest of it, and just was at his beck and call, essentially. And that too was on time and on budget, or below budget. That other project, Hagan Street, was a good example too, where we helped Tom through that process, getting some of those plans prepared and what have you. But after the construction of the curb was done, Tom really wasn't happy with the aesthetics of the curb, and so that's when he called Sandy, and Sandy went out there and looked at it and concurred what he was seeing about the workmanship of the curb. Sandy called the contractor, and they talked back and forth a while, and then Sandy said, well, you're going to have to tell me to my face out on site that this is a good quality job. And lo and behold, they did that, and Tom was successful in getting a deduct as a result of that effort. I should mention too, this 11th Street project, Tim Caruso approached me and said, is there a way for the water utility to handle some of our own construction observation to save the citizens of Hudson some dollars? And we worked out, Sandy worked with his staff to figure out where they're best fitting, what she needs, because it's more than just watching that water main go in the ground. You have to keep track of everything they do and what they encounter and what have you. And so that was a quite successful collaboration as well. So with that being said, again, I really feel strongly that construction services is, Bonus Road really excels in that. Some of the things too I should mention about me in regards to the deep bench, and you start looking at some of the stormwater business and some of the impact fees coming up. I'm well knowledgeable, well versed on what your infrastructure is. I know the dollar amounts that are coming due, and I understand, if you don't spend this money or find the right projects to utilize these dollars by the end of 2012, then you're going to start losing some of those dollars. And so I'm prepared to work with staff on that, not the financial people as well as Tom, helping St. Joseph out with their lawsuits with the Builders Association. So I understand what's critical as far as the statutes go, and that's going to be a real big issue. That, other stormwater issues too. You look at the MS4 business and what that means for your community. You're going to be an MS4 community within the next year or two. And what that's going to mean is there's going to be public education requirements you'll need help on, best management practices, things you're going to need to incorporate, and reporting, et cetera, et cetera. And in our deep bench, we have people like Randy Niepresh, who he did the guide plan for the state of Minnesota. So essentially all MS4 communities work in the state use a guide plan that we helped develop. And currently he was asked by the Wisconsin DNR and the state of Minnesota Pollution Control Agency for advice and potential assistance on the TMDL for Lake St. Croix. And so he may be working with them as far as what they're looking for Bonus Road to help out on is engaging the stakeholders, namely, like Hudson's and other communities in the area, and making sure that they're properly involved in this process. So we do have the people, and we want to be your partner. And with that being said, I'd be happy to answer any and all of your questions this evening.
Questions? Anyone?
Quick question, Chuck. I did not see any mention of mileage charges in your brochure, and we discussed this briefly. Would you address that?
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. Our intent is, with this routine services and the stuff that's being charged to the city, our intent is not to bill mileage. We would, however, like to bill mileage for the private development work, those pass-through costs. And it's not a big dollar amount. Essentially, Sandy lives in Warren Township, and she doesn't charge mileage coming to and from Hudson. It's the only mileage we're charging developers is, when I have to run over specifically to look at something, or Sandy going from job to job to job. And I looked at 2010, and it was less than $500, probably closer to $400 that we pass through onto these developers, and we would like to charge mileage for that.
Which kind of dovetails, so on an hourly basis, when you're reviewing a project, a private project for the city, you charge the private developer a higher rate than you would charge us?
That's correct, our regular standard rate, yeah.
Can you give me an example, roughly?
It's $128, I believe.
And ours is at 97?
97, and then with the retainer, it would be 50.
Okay, thank you. One other question I had. Your percentage of private versus public work, roughly in the office, and again, it doesn't have to be exact, but what percentage is private and which is public?
Oh, my. Oh, for the firm-wide or for Hudson?
No, for firm-wide.
Oh, firm-wide, I gotta believe it's in the realm of 80% municipal versus
80% versus about 10% private.
Okay.
80 and 10 is 90.
That was just counting energy and industry.
Oh, okay, that's fine, okay.
And are you aware of any change in ownership that may be taking place or is imminent within your firm at the present time? Oh, that's probably not a question but.
No, maybe that's one that I can address. My role at Bonestro, when I agreed to take on the duties of the CEO, was to transition from the founding principals, Otto, Bob, and Joe, to the next generation of leaders. And with regard to that, I'm trying to bring on new internal owners. We're a wholly owned, employee-owned firm, and our intention is to stay that way. But you will hear things. I am in the process of bringing on some new owners, and there may increase the share of the ESOP at some point in time in the near future.
Okay, thank you.
One additional question on compensation. You currently, if I remember right, you currently charge us $50 for each meeting you attend here. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And that's your plan going forward in 2011 as well?
That's correct.
Continue to do that?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
But on Public Works and Finance, is an hourly rate that you were charging previously? It was only $50 for council meetings, correct? And then if you attended Public Works, you charged an hourly rate?
Yeah, finance I've never charged for. And the only time I've charged for Public Works is if there's something specifically that I'm asked to address, or it's some issue that's passed on through the developers. So that's when I've attended those. It's a little bit of a mixed bag. If I'm requested to be there, then I have in the past charged it hourly.
I've got two questions.
Sure.
Chuck, there's no secret that I've been hard on you this last year and beyond, but the observation and the inspections are so important with regards to our city's construction projects. Define and elaborate the experience and the credentials of your observation team, and then I've got a second follow-up to that.
My observation team, and that's really what I tried to highlight. And
Sandy?
Sandy and Dave. That's the two primary people. And, occasionally we've pulled in like a Jeff Toutant, who's got all the Wisconsin certifications. But again, Sandy's been doing this for 23 years. And you can talk, she's well respected by all the local contractors. I'd encourage you to talk to the folks up in St. Joseph and Sandy's ability to stay on top of contractors and work with them. Maybe you want to say a few words about Dave Hansen. I don't know what else I can say. I don't think there's anybody better at Bonestro at construction or more revered than Dave. And I'm lucky to have him out here in the western portion of the Twin Cities.
Sure. Something that I'm particularly proud of is how Bonestro has developed its construction services staff. In fact, that was my duty, say, 15 years ago, is to develop that staff, and Dave Hansen has become one of the preeminent experts in pavement and pavement management. His knowledge about how to work with contractors and how to prevent problems is almost legendary, and we're very proud of all of the folks in our construction services. We think that is a kind of an advantage of Bonestro versus some of our other colleagues.
If I can add one more thing, up in St. Joseph this year, that was quite unique because we were doing $3 million worth of road reconstruction. And we have all different kinds of pavement sections, from pavement put right on clay, pavement on a little bit of gravel, pavement on a lot of bit of gravel, et cetera, et cetera. And Dave went out there, we potholed the roads, he saw that was there, and we came up with 4 different rehabilitation strategies, depending on the site condition. And it was, I mean, that's where a gentleman like Dave just shines.
Chuck, unfortunately, I don't represent St. Joe.
No.
I represent the city of Hudson and District 1. Quite frankly, I think that your folks dropped the ball on at least 3 of the projects on your observation and inspections of the projects. 11th Street, problems we had with that and the length of time it took, deadlines were not met. The triple turn lane on Crestview, deadlines were not met. The restoration of turf was not met on Aldrich, and those are the complaints I got from the citizens of the city of Hudson. I wouldn't be doing my job if I don't hold you accountable and your staff for those things that were not acceptable. You had no follow-up on your observations and your construction site inspections. I felt it was inadequate for what we pay for.
And, I don't know if you want me to comment, but, on all
Certainly.
3 of them, when you look at that 11th Street project, okay, some of the issues that we had there was a lesson learned by, all of us was to save a nickel. The wastewater utility and public works hired a separate contractor to raise some of the manhole rings and those things. And that entered a kind of a realm where they weren't adjusted properly, and that contractor wasn't timing out with the other contractor. And so, again, I don't really feel that was, all on us. I'm not blaming staff, but when you get a lot of contractors involved like that, it does give the ability of one contractor to use the other contractor as an excuse.
Your section 22 of your presentation, that your experienced staff, the experience means this team knows how to effectively run projects, resulting in the quality projects being delivered on time and when within budget. It simply wasn't done. On those 3 projects specifically that I mentioned.
On the 11th Street, yes, it was, it was about a week late, if I recall. And, we also had some unforeseen conditions, too, on 11th Street, where we had, we were milling a portion of the road, and a piece fell in, and we encountered a 6 by 6 by 6 foot.
I was out there
hole.
with Sandy. I saw it myself.
Yeah, and, so sometimes those things do happen in construction. You have to address them properly. In regards to 9 Aldrich, if you recall, a lot of that had to do, the delays there with the timing of the work. Again, that was the mayor mentioned at the last meeting as far as the late season start. And if you go back and look at the weather records, and I'm sure Tom can attest to this, we had like 30 days out of 40 that were rainy. And when you're doing construction that late in the year, it's hard to dry things out. And that was actually area too where Dave Hansen and the value he brought, because we couldn't get that gravel to dry out. And the contractor was telling us he's going to have to take to get this to work, he's gonna have to subcut down 2 feet, take all that out and replace it with sand, or the road will not hold up. And that's when I called Dave in and said, Dave, look at this, what can we do? And, Dave
I'm not
developed
even
a solution.
talking about the road. I'm talking about the turf restoration in our residents' yards.
Well, but, you need to get that road completed before you do the restoration. That's,
You had to do it twice.
yep. And that's, we held them accountable. It was the subcontractor that was chosen. We ended up forcing the contractor to get somebody else in there to make those repairs because it's first contractor. So I thought we worked quite effectively to get out
Is there any other questions?
Well,
Do
the
you wanna-
11th, they're the 11th, or the triple left, I can certainly talk on that if you'd like.
If you're more than welcome to.
I would, just very quickly, that is on me, not our construction staff. I knew the foreman on that job personally. I took him for his word, and I won't make that mistake in the future. And so it was a little bit delayed on getting that triple left turn lane resolved.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you for considering us.
You bet. I see Kathy's here and Marty's here. Do you want to go into closed session and finish that up real quick, and then they go, and then we can come back? If that's your desire.
Sure.
We can.
Well, we're paying her by the hour.
Right,
so,
that's why I said we'd probably make a lot of.
Do you need a motion?
Yes.
I move to go into closed session.
Okay, and we had need a roll call vote on that. Roll call?
We're still in the committee of the whole, you'll have to adjourn this and then
Okay.
start the other meeting.
Oh, okay.
You're
Second.
not gonna make any decisions on.
Well, we
Will,
can.
but after the closed session.
We want to go into closed session because.
Oh, are we running into a noticing problem then?
There was no closed session notice on the committee of the whole to go in to discuss.
No, we're talking about
There's
our other
two
issue that we
agendas.
have. Can we
Catherine?
adjourn for 15
Can they
minutes?
adjourn this meeting and go back into it?
Have you interviewed everybody?
Yes.
Let me just quick look at the notice.
Okay,
It's right here.
it's item 2.
I didn't mean to interrupt, but I just
No,
didn't
no, I
want you to
just-
go in and not
Yeah.
be able to do anything.
No secret.
I just didn't want to have Marty and Kathy sit here for
Yes.
an hour or 10 minutes or
Oh,
20 minutes.
I'm ready to vote.
Things don't go that easy, Scott.
I know.
Do you think it's gonna be a while to deliberate and so
Yes.
forth? Oh,
Well,
okay.
I don't know the answer to that.
It's cleaner if you just finish up this meeting, but I think you
Let's
can-
try. Let's see
Take
what
us off your
happens.
tally.
And then, that's fine, I don't have a problem with that.
All right, then we will continue,
I mean,
if
Let's
that's,
do a straw
honestly
poll
don't-
and see how that comes out.
Can
We'll know if we need to talk.
Yep.
I request that we have paper ballots?
Sure.
that'd be,
It's easier than when whoever we work with.
all right. Do we want to do a discussion or do we want to vote right away? I guess that's entirely up to you folks. We can, if you want to do a straw, or
Can we
not.
take an initial?
Sure.
Yeah, let's take our own temperature, and if it looks like we need to discuss some things, if we're, if we get, like, all 4 companies get votes, and
We're doing 1, 2, 3 as scheduled, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Or are you just voting for one?
Just vote for one, huh? Would that,
Yes.
vote
Also
for
write
one.
the name down.
I mean,
Send the paper around and see if we're done.
yeah, I mean,
okay,
we may all come up with the same answer, who knows?
There is, I do have to identify how you're voting, because that's going to be a public.
well,
That's why the
absolutely.
number's on there, so.
Oh, that, we don't need to write our name then?
No, just,
Okay.
4.
I'll tell you later, Lee.
Yeah, we'll have a remedial reading course
We're
for
good.
you.
oh, I'm sorry, I don't have my little container.
You put it in a hat?
Devin never wears a jacket, why would he wear a hat?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry, 4 for Fourth, 2 for Stevens.
No, then it's both, right? Or Catherine?
Seems like
Seems it's
that's
both.
the
That's
vote.
it.
Yep.
Do you want us to identify ourselves?
No.
Well, I would say you would probably should make, you're gonna have to make a motion.
I will move that we appoint Foth as our new consulting engineering firm, effective immediately.
I'll second that.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
4-2.
That's it.
Okay.
You were right, you forgot it.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved. So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
We will call the special